Last year, we were considering selling the company. I was talking about it openly, and people were like, that's crazy. Why would you talk about that? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I talk about it?
I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
That was Daniel Todd.
And this is our podcast,
Amazing Teams. Join us as we have conversations with remarkable people who are building amazing teams. Daniel Todd, thank you for joining us on our first ever podcast here. This is pretty exciting for us.
It's exciting for me. I'm loving it, of course. So thank you for the invitation. And I think I prepped well enough of my questions, but I'm good on my feet too. So we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll be honest, last night I fell into a hole of reading your articles and learning more about your business. And I woke up this morning thinking, oh my God, I might not be able to follow the script we sent. I want to ask Daniel all different types of questions now. So I apologize if I go off script.
Please do. If I don't have to be prepared and I'm just actually probably am better.
Yeah, I think we all are. And that's what I told Una. I was like, you know what? The best conversation is going to be an authentic conversation that just kind of happens. But I do feel like I need to properly introduce you for our first ever podcast, right? So I'm just going to grab what I found here in Entrepreneurial magazine. Daniel Todd, the founder of Influence Mobile, credited with creating a corporate culture that repeatedly won Washington CEOs and the Puget Sound Business Journal's Best Places to Work awards. That's incredible. We want to know more. What's the recipe?
You're going to hear this as a resounding theme on everything. It's getting the right people on the bus. So you need people that have a similar purpose, a similar culture, which I can discuss what I've kind of come to believe the word culture encapsulates for me. And then it's just about building relationships with those people. I know that in the world we live in with remote work, it's harder to build relationships with people, but it's not impossible to do that. And so it's really having those relationships, asking people what's meaningful to them. Like, what do you want? I mean, most people come to work to make a difference. Most people come to work to get paid fairly. Most people come to work because they have to, but they want it to be a positive experience. And so if you try to make it a positive experience, or you do make it a positive experience for them, and you pay them fairly and you give them meaningful work, and then you sign up for rewards that says, hey, we're competing to be the best place to work, a lot of them will vote favorably.
I love it. So you've got a 60-person team, is that right?
It's getting up to closer to 70, but yeah.
That's incredible. You're building apps that drives engagement by incentivizing behaviors. Is that right? Your company is called Influence Mobile. Tell Una and I more about Influence. I'm so curious.
I started the company in 2012. The original name was Affinity Influencing Systems, and the goal was to build technology to influence people's future shopping experience. So very, very broad. I had started another company prior to that in the desktop toolbar space. If you're familiar with like the Google and Yahoo toolbar, kind of came and crushed us all out of existence, but it was a good space to be in while it lasted. We actually started working with celebrities back in the early Facebook days, where we created shopping rewards programs where people could go shop through links that we provided and earn points to meet their favorite people. So people like Jillian Michaels, Ashley Tisdale, Shane Mitchell, there's a bunch of rappers I never heard of, Jeff Gordon, and that all worked great until Lindsay Lohan was an early partner of ours, and she posted, and 9,000 people in 5 minutes came to download a desktop product on their mobile phone. After Lindsay posted and 9,000 people came, we're like, we got to come up with some mobile solution. And so we started just doing what we were doing on the desktop on mobile, which didn't work, which we created just shopping apps that people would have to remember to open. The power of being on the desktop was they didn't have to remember it. They just open up their browser, their little favorite celebrity's face popped up. So revenue per download started to go down, and we knew we needed to do something different. So we actually met with Facebook. Facebook was just launching Facebook Audience Network, which is you can show their ads in your apps. And I met with them and they said, hey, we're looking for people to experiment. Do whatever you want. I'm like, do whatever I want? I'm like, would you say I could give people points for checking out your ads? They're like, sounds good to us. And within 9 months of that conversation, we were making $3 million a month, rewarding people for clicking on ads. But I knew there was a fundamental flaw. And so we just started building Engage, because I knew that the day was coming where they weren't just going to let us give people points for clicking on that. That date came pretty quickly. And we had grown from like 9 to 50 employees no sooner than we started building this new product called Engage. Then Facebook's like, hey, yeah, we're going to turn this off. We don't know when. We like what you're doing. We don't got a problem with it, but we don't consider it scalable. They said, we're going to turn it off. And so we started more urgently building this product. The happy ending of this story is that this year we're going to do about $70 million in revenue with Engage. Our ideal customer is spending $550 a day in casual games. Mm-hmm. And we're like a credit card rewards program. We give them, anywhere from 10 to 20% cash back. So some of these people are spending thousands of dollars a year. They're earning hundreds of dollars of gift cards back from us. And so then what happens is those people are very motivated to stay within our network. And so we bring in millions of users looking for those 5%.
I'm so curious, Daniel, what's one thing that you learned about the human behavior by incentivizing gaming and the reward? I'm sure you have a great insight of like, this one thing was really meaningful to us.
Long time that everybody thought I was crazy when I kept saying we were targeting females 35 plus. I grew up in the 70s playing Atari and then Nintendo, and everybody just thought it was a teenage boy thing. But in my first company, we were in kind of this desktop space and we saw females playing match 3 games. There were the times where I had to argue with my investors that targeting females was the right thing. And people were like, that's crazy and it's not the right focus. And I'm like, trust me, dudes. Like, I know that these people are spending money. There is a certain feel that people spending too much money in games could kind of be negative. And so we don't really try to get people to spend a lot more. We just try to get the people who spend to keep spending with us. Like, so if you're comfortable spending $1,000 a month, good on you. We're not trying to get you to spend $2,000 a month. We just never want you to leave, right? So we're trying to just maintain this. And so we don't think it's healthy to necessarily reward crazy spending that's not financially sound. That also is something that not every investor totally understands. So we're very much about finding people who like to play games that are already spending money and just having them shift within our network. We don't try to convince people that have never spent money in playing games. That's not very productive. 95% of people don't spend money. That's changing. The concept of using games entertainment has definitely shifted over the years. So you're finding more and more people spending money, but our goal is really retention over like massive increases of spending. So I wouldn't say that that's a learning other than it's kind of proven to be a correct strategy.
So our focus here on these podcasts are around teams, right? And creating amazing teams. What's your secret for creating your team there at Influence?
I call it, hiring for culture, which means different things to different people. But in saying that so many years in a row, I was like, well, what does culture mean to me? And so I stumbled across the book Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck a couple of years ago. And I'm like, this is what I mean. This is so the culture for me is somebody who comes in with a growth mindset for themselves and others, which comes with a certain amount of humility, right? So you don't think you're the smartest person in the room if you understand that you can also grow and improve. And so it's people that prefer to be part of a team than the overall top contributor. And again, this is just our culture. I think there are different, I've written a couple articles, there are different types of cultures for sure, and different cultures work equally well in different circumstances. But for us, it's people who want to be part of a team. They want to feel valued. They want to they want to be treated with respect and treat others people with respect. And I will generally, even just recently, like we were hiring some new folks, and there was a really experienced person who was a fine person, and then there was a little bit less experienced person, but that person was totally awesome. Like, I'm like, this person's going to love this culture. They read all the articles that you mentioned you read. They're like, it doesn't even make sense that a place like this exists. And they were just so excited about being part of the team that I hired that person because I know that person's going to be a better fit long-term than the person. So I always say that like this, I would take a person who's 100% cultural fit and a 75% technical fit over the inverse. If you're 100% technical fit and only a 75% cultural fit, that will eventually break down. Doesn't mean you don't end up having that sometimes, but if you have the choice, I always hire for cultural fit because I can train everything else.
How did this thinking for you come to be? Like we got to know each other through your writing, right? About the importance of kindness in the workplace. You clearly have written a lot about culture. Why is that important to you? How did this come to be as a topic that you spend your time on?
Yeah, great question. So before I knew anything, in my late 20s, I started a company and we needed salespeople. And myself and my co-founder were kind of the tech geeks, and we're like, we are definitely not salespeople. We hated the even concept of being a salesperson. So, because we had this perception it was like, used car dealers. We didn't know. So what did we end up doing? We ended up hiring used car dealers. We hired these people who we had heard that they were kind of a-holes. We had heard that they were abrasive. We also heard that they were the best salespeople. Unfortunately, the feedback was only right on the first two. They were only kind of a-holes, and they weren't that good at salespeople. They were selling TV commercials, which turns out you didn't have to do. It worked out hard to do. So we got them into our company, and they literally made it so everybody hated coming to work. I hated coming to work. It was horrible. They treated everybody like trash, like they were superior. And then it was failing. Like they were faking invoices to try to hit goals and like all this crazy stuff. We were out of money. We were shutting down the business. And I remember sitting down with one of these guys saying, we've got to let you go. But I was actually going to stick around and work for free for 90 days. And he told me, he's like, you are going to fail. If you stay, you should keep me and lay everybody else off. I'm like, dude, we don't have any money. But anyways, it was like this experience with these people. And in hindsight, it was one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned. Thankfully, it didn't kill the company. We came very close to doing it. And from that point forward, I'm like, I only want to work with people that I want to work with. It's like, I don't want to have to work with these kind of a-hole people. And so when I took over then as like the head of sales, we were losing money. And we hired a new VP of sales, I think like 3 or 4 years later when we were doing about $50 million a year. And during that time, I just kept hiring college students who didn't know what they were doing, but who were just super friendly to work with. And I just trained them all. And I did that like 40 times. I'm like, wow, it's way better to work with people who are awesome and friendly and upbeat. And we got known at that time for just having a fun culture. It was very useful. It was a different vibe than our current company. But that lesson of hiring these people specifically for their skills and not for their fit was the original, the problem I've been trying to solve ever since.
That's real interesting.
One thing, Daniel, about how did that culture affect the layoffs you had in the last, 11 years now when you first started the predecessor of Influence Mobile? Like you had some ups and downs. How did you think about the team through the ups and downs? That must have been hard.
Well, yeah, in the first company we had ups and in all startups you have ups and downs, right? And so it's very hard when you care about people and you need to lay them off, right? Regardless of what situation is, it becomes crushing, right? And so the only way that I've gotten through it is I've decided that I will always treat people the same way I'd want to be treated. So I simply are like, okay, that doesn't mean it's always awesome. It just means to the degree that I have control to make it as good as it possibly can be for them, even if it's slightly more negative for us, I always act in that way. So like when we did layoffs that we knew at this company, we had to do them at my first company, we brought in people who were recruiters. We brought in LinkedIn writers who could help people, we tried to do everything that we could to prepare people. We made sure they knew that it wasn't because of them, right? It was in this company, it was because of Facebook, and other times it was other issues. And so when I think about the team, I'm always just trying to treat them the way that I'd want to be treated. And it doesn't make it good, but it makes it as good as you can get it. And that has generally been viewed like a lot of times. People I've laid off, I'm still friends with because they're like, the way you handled it, we can't, we didn't love being laid off, but you did as best as you could. And people picked up on that. So
it's probably important for the people who are left as well, because they see how you treat their colleagues, right? Everyone empathizes with the layoff in a tough situation, and it probably feels good to know that their teammates were treated well.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's always very good. During that time, I was also very transparent with people, right? So I would tell the people who were left, here's how much money we got. In some cases, not very much. Right now, I'm pretty transparent with people. And even like last year, we were considering selling the company. I was talking about it openly, and people are like, that's crazy. Why would you talk about that? I'm like, well, why wouldn't I talk about it, right? If it's not transparency, if I'm not sharing something that you might want to know that I would want to keep hidden from you, right? It's not transparency if I only share good news, right? So if you think it's concerning to you that we would sell the company, you should bring those questions to me. I wouldn't want to hide it from you, right? And so, but that felt like so less controversial than like, telling people that there's only 60 days of cash in the bank. That can get people real nervous, right?
Oh, I bet.
But when you tell them the plan and then you accomplish that plan, it starts to build trust and confidence. And you can do that because you do that over and over. You get people who trust you. It doesn't mean you're always going to be right, but and so we did that when we got down to 7 people in 2018, and since then, no one has actually willingly quit our company since 2018.
That's amazing. So I'm so curious, like how are you measuring the efforts, the cultural efforts that you're making there at Influence Mobile? Like, how do you know when things are working?
Sure. Well, I'd say one is that retention rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was very flattered recently. There were 2, not every day is roses, right? There's times where people don't get along and you have to have healthy conflict and healthy conflict resolution. And that was happening. And then one employee, I heard this story from somebody else, but one employee was talking to another employee, and they're like, if you can't be happy here, you cannot be happy anywhere.
Yeah.
And he went on to say, all I want to do is work at this company until I retire.
Wow.
Well, that, now he's not in his 20s, but like it felt very good. And you hear enough of those stories where people are like, I've never worked at a place where everybody's so nice. And so like those things are nice. And we have awards where we hold ourselves accountable to. So like, we've stopped applying for like the Washington State Awards. This year we won the Inc. magazine Best Places to Work. And so we're going to kind of hold ourselves accountable to that measure. Like if we don't make that list, they're very detailed in the scoring system. Like you can get there because employees don't vote for you or you don't have good other amenities. And so like we're going to judge ourselves by that. And then of course it's productivity, right? Like we've also made the Inc. 5000 for the last 2 years. We're going to make it again, I think, a third year. So the output, the benefit to shareholders is that the team works better and more efficiently, and you get projects out the door and you grow, and we're seeing that more and more. So I'd say those 3 things, right? So people are happy, and they tell you that they're happy. You win these awards that are measured, and then team efficiency and productivity.
Got it. What are you guys doing for fun at Influence? How are you keeping people engaged?
So this year is the first year where we've had a big team and it's not had COVID lockdowns, right? So this year our experiment is trying to do 2 in-person events per employee per year. So one is in Q1 of every year. So this year, we all came together in Vegas and we had face-to-face meetings. And whenever we do this, half of the purpose, so 50% of the time, is based on just team building and doing fun stuff together. So the big group of us are going to San Diego in September. And we have they were scheduling so much fun stuff. I'm like, dudes, this is not a vacation. This is actually a work thing. So like we're going to be, one of the dinners is going to be on the beach. We're going to have fire pits and taco bars and ice cream things. And the next day, we're going to take everybody to the San Diego Zoo. And this is the toned down version. There were water skis, jet skis, and all this other stuff. And then we're trying to get that. I just hired a travel coordinator who's going to make sure that everybody gets this experience of traveling once with their team, traveling once with the full company thing. And then we try to make it, a lot of this, I think, is purposeful relationship building, right?
Yeah.
We've done these like one-on-one things with like water cooler stuff where 2 people are put together with no purpose other than talk about your favorite movie. That doesn't seem to cut it. So in the last couple of years, I've created a small group that they schedule people's birthday gifts and they schedule a monthly digital social. And the people, so it was a small group of people, but those people loved it, right? My daughter works for the company. She's on it, and she's like, it's oftentimes the most I talk with other people in the company is these like purposeful groups, because she's a salesperson. She's out talking to other people. So I actually just recently rolled out a new program where everybody in the company is now over the next 12 months going to participate, and they're going to be in groups of 5 or 6, and they're each going to do 1 month of birthdays, and they're going to do 1 digital social event. Those things include like we just did a lip sync contest called Sync Your Heart Out. It was actually awesome.
Oh yeah.
The people that the number one, I actually thought it was a real video. Like it was so professional. I thought he cut himself in, and they filmed the whole thing. So we're doing things like that. We've done cooking contests. We've done digital murder mysteries. So we try to have some purposeful gathering. Not everybody likes those equally, but it's some mix of purposeful small groups, purposeful or fun bigger groups on a digital basis to the degree that you can, and then augmented with real life experiences. I'd say between 2 and 5 times a year, right? Like the leadership team might go more than 2 times. So, but it's a work in progress, and everybody has different needs in this area. So it's really about asking the team what fulfills them. So
that's great. That certainly sounds like a lot of fun.
It is fun. It's fun for the people who find it fun. Like I said, I think the challenge is you'll find that like some people are just they don't have this big a need for connections. We don't want to let them necessarily off the hook. We're not saying you can just disappear and be an island, but we don't force people to participate in social events either. But for example, these kind of purposeful small groups, you kind of have to opt out. You have to opt out to me personally, which I think it's mostly good participation. So sometimes you have to kind of force people into doing some amount of stuff, but you're not trying to force them into everything. And then I also just rolled out a new EBITDA-based kind of profit sharing program, and I've had a one-on-one with everybody but 2 employees in the month of July. It's been crazy, and I've enjoyed it. But also just investing in that relationship with each person is meaningful to me, and I think it's good for them. And then, I know where their head's at, and I try to, accommodate everybody. So
that's amazing.
Are you the main person thinking about all these activities and rolling them out and designing them, or do you have some help?
I for sure have help. I would say over the many, many years, I'm probably the person focused most on culture building. But I'm very good at getting other people involved. And so I tend to get other people involved, right? So like the social groups, I got spun up and like they just did their thing and they would just keep running. So then like the change, so like they were doing all of the individual planning, but then like the change to the bigger thing, the new thing called Socius, that was my idea. So I kind of think of the structural changes, then we bring people in, and more people help. And, I try to get other people's opinion all the time on what's fun for them and those types of things. And, a lot of people are social. So then you just have to ask them what they want to do. Right. And so, so it's definitely a group effort.
Do you find that month prior and the month after, when people are talking about these events, that they're more engaged in their work?
Everybody's pretty engaged. That's obviously the ultimate measure. And so we're very much a product-driven, like dev-driven organization. In terms of our growth comes from new product innovation. And so we put a lot of effort in making sure that group is very tied in. And I would say, I'm happy to say, I don't think it massively increases engagement because people are already pretty engaged, right?
Okay.
I do think it builds happiness, right? Like when you have these events, like I don't think, one thing I have learned is, and I think this is one of the questions you guys asked, is like, can you build meaningful relationships over Zoom?
Yeah.
And I would say yes. And one of the questions was, well, how do you know? And I would say because, so we ended up buying this company 2 years ago, and there were two co-founders. The one I dealt with the most was a guy named Randy Waxman, who's the president of our company now. And for more or less for 4 years, we talked, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week, every week for 4 straight years. My wife would joke that I talk with him more than I talk with her, even though she was in the same house. And we built a pretty strong relationship. We of course saw each other a few limited times, which is very useful. But 98 to 99% of our relationship has been built over Zoom. But it was built with a very clear purpose. We were both working together to build this company. We both cared about the other one enough to like learn their kids' names and ask about, so there's always that kind of stuff. So I think you can build those relationships, but you got to augment it with real life events, real life meetings once in a while, right? So the alternative is there was a dear woman who's on our board who I had met digitally like 5 or 6 years ago, and she was a business partner, and then she became a board member, and we've chatted once a month, every month for like 6 straight years. And she, well, maybe like every month for 2 years, and we knew each other before that. So, but she came to Vegas this last year, and in 3 days of like hanging out together, I would say we like advanced the relationship. I don't even know what percentage, a lot more, right? So it also makes me realize that while you can build positive relationships in Zoom environments, nothing beats being face-to-face for some amount of time, right? Because now, I mean, she's just a good question asker, so we like got really deep on a lot of things. And now our relationship is just very much more robust. We're much closer to each other, even though, it's just Zoom. And so I think, I don't know the perfect answer, but there's some mixture where that works, right? And like I said, I think you can get a lot of work done with Zoom, but to really strengthen the relationships long-term, I think you need to have the right balance of real life face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
Or not even meetings, relationship building.
Sure. Just in-person connection, whether it's, the vehicle, whether it's a meeting or a lunch, I don't think that really matters. It's just in person.
Yeah. Well, I would say it probably, I think what I've learned in the in-person stuff, because we just had a longtime friend of mine who's our CTO just came and visited last week. And I think the benefit of in-person stuff is that when we all get together in Zoom, we all have a purpose, and we're all talking right now about something, and we're making a difference. We're accomplishing a goal. But if the three of us went out to dinner and we were chatting, we would be forced to talk about things other than, work stuff. And that's where I think the secret sauce starts to happen is you have to develop a relationship that transcends the business transactional side. And when that starts to happen, I think you start to care about other people, you start to know more about them, you reciprocate, and there's something magic that happens there. Is the key, it's why many of us live in relationships with other people because of that. So.
Nice. I love it. This has been amazing. Thank you, Daniel. It's really incredible what you've built and what you're doing and the way you're doing it. It's learned a lot just listening to you talk, reading your posts. We're going to try a little bit here at the end. I think we should probably wrap up, but as you know, in Hey Taco, you have 5 tacos to give each day. Who are you giving your 5 tacos to today? It could be one person. It could be 5 different people. Just like to end with a little gratitude.
My tacos go to you guys. I like what you're doing. I like your approach. I want you guys to be successful, right? And I appreciate you doing this. I think, getting people thinking about making places better for their employees only helps everybody. And you're who I give my tacos to today.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, then please share this podcast with others. And we would love to know how we did. You can tell us by going to amazingteams.com/feedback.